are they trying to program for specific ages more, or in the past, did they go more broad, or what do you think? How is it now?
Well, as I had said at one time when we were discussing this, if everybody knew, if the television executives knew what works and what doesn't, then every single show would be a hit. No shows would go off the air.
Right.
It wouldn't be one hit wonders. It would be some programming that lasts and lasts and lasts. But it seems as though there is no science to this.
Mhm.
They figure, oh, we got a couple of eyeballs on this one. Let's give her a show. Let's see what happens. And they have no idea what the public sentiment is all about. And nowadays, the public sentiment is changing like crazy.
And
So,
they're binge watching. They want binging kinds of things to watch. So it's interesting to me to see what goes viral. I mean, I try to watch everything that people are watching just to see what it is. And sometimes I'm like, I get caught up in it because it is interesting. But I think it's kind of like we talked about on another episode about how you want to keep people coming back for more, for the next thing, for the next thing. It's kind of a soap opera-esque quality to what
that,
these shows are.
that's the model that has worked in the past on television.
Yeah.
You want such a big hit that it's almost appointment television, so that the people know, wow, I'm going to get some major content and information and entertainment from this the next time, so I'm going to tune in. And that's what your executive producers are hoping for. And of course, the people who foot the bill for all of this, they're hoping for that. And the sponsors are hoping for that. And sometimes you have this big splash for opening night,
Yeah.
and then people don't show up for the second round or the third round, and before you know it, it fizzles out.
Well, I see a lot of people are trying to create their own station, whatever .tv or YouTube.
Well, we
whatever.
all have that on YouTube. We
We
all
all
have
have,
a
right,
channel.
right. But it's a challenge because there's just, you remember when you were a kid, you had three stations. You had the bunny ears and the UHF, VHF, or whatever, but you had three stations, right? That was it. And
Mhm.
so you had to watch Captain Kangaroo, whether you liked him or not as a kid, and that, whatever, Mr. Rogers, and that was it.
Well,
Now,
don't you think during those times we never were asked, do you like this? Do you not like this? You'll just watch it.
but we were so bored, you watched it because there was nothing else,
Well,
And I think back to it, and the things that were a hit there could never be popular now because we're so sophisticated, and we have,
I think we are.
or we're also spoiled because we're used to having choice, and everybody flick through every million different stations of different things. Nobody has that attention span. Do you think that we'll stop seeing these half-hour shows, these hour shows, and things that we've had, and everything's just gonna be like TikTok or whatever, quick thing?
For a while, I had seen programming for 15 minutes at a time, and then 10 minutes at a time. And the TikTok mentality certainly is a result of our very limited attention spans. Here
Yeah.
we are talking about how to reach your executives, your marketplace, to improve the bottom line through your media presence.
Right.
And you think, you opened up earlier talking about the difference between personal and professional and how the two of them meld together so well.
Right.
Yeah, I think that you can't help but you can't help but think that you can separate yourself from the personal and professional. Everything is washed into everything else. So if you're talking to a CEO about making presentations that matter, you're also talking to that person about his competition for eyeballs. And I am very, very aware of pop culture items to bring into my media coaching with top-notch executives, because that is how the people who are listening to them are set up. They're expecting to drop out after 7 seconds, 30 seconds is the limit of the amount that they can sit. And then you, as a host or a speaker, have got to find ways around their ennui.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know,
They're going down, you're losing their interest, and they are fatigued or whatever. You're going to have to do major things to grab them back. And whether it's a change in I messages, which I call dialogue, or whether it's a change in body language, or whether it's a change in volume, and very quietly. I mean, these are all techniques that I advise my CEOs to take on and practice. And usually our CEOs are not all that dramatic.
You know, as you brought that up, it brought to mind when I worked as the MBA program chair at Forbes School of Business. I did a lot of things where I was around Steve Forbes quite a bit. I can remember being at a Forbes Women's Summit where he interviewed Kim Kardashian on the stage. And you think of Steve Forbes and Kim Kardashian together, it's just kind of like, you don't think of those two as being from the same generation, the same kind of things to talk about. And he was really funny with her. He was like, you know, on the edge of my seat in last season when Chloe was whatever, I don't know. He was so cute. He was giving storylines from her show to her. And I remember talking to him about it later. And I go, that was just so cute the way he was. You know, I said, Steve, I love that you were saying about her show and Chloe.
And what did he say?
And I go, you didn't watch that, did you? He goes, yeah, I did. He goes, I watched it. And he really went out of his way to know what the popular thing is, to tie into it and to draw the audience in. And that's what a CEO has to remember. You were talking about what the pop culture is of the time, and being hip to whatever Chloe said on that show is one thing. And I think when you're talking to a group, especially in presentations to your all your salespeople to get them revved up at the end of the year, whenever you're doing your different presentations, some people are just really good at that they bring in things that are happening. And you've got very young people that know what's on the cutting edge. So if you're talking something like I just did of Honey Boo Boo a long time ago, that's not in anymore. You got to find the cool thing to make them laugh a little bit.
But you see, the fact that Steve Kardashian, oh my goodness, I'll appreciate that. Yeah. The fact that Steve Forbes, and by the way, I saw him when I was at Fox News about a year ago. I saw him in the lobby, and I said hi. When the fact that he, as high up in his circles as he is, took the time to do his homework, means that there is no excuse for anybody not to do their homework to find out who they are interviewing. I know you do that regularly. You spend a lot of time on finding out who these people are in advance.
You know, and I'm on other people's shows when they don't do that sometimes when they're interviewing me, and they'll go, well, tell me about yourself. And they get all interested. They go, oh, you did that? You know, like this is the first time they even heard about it, you know? I'm thinking that's not a good thing to admit. Just pretend you know, at least if you don't. You know what I mean?
Well, on the new book that I am in the midst of re-editing now.
Which is great. I loved it.
Thank you. Almost. Well, I'm re-editing, so who knows how long that's going to take. But on that book, all about your media presence and amplifying that to amplify your brand. Thank you for helping me on the title.
We had fun with that.
We had so much fun, I know. But because of that, I am reconsidering adding a piece about doing your homework in advance. Just because you have a million different things going on your calendar doesn't mean that you can eradicate that piece from everything else. For example, somebody came to me and to look at their fabulous design of a new learning product. It was fabulous. And he wanted to know if I could be the spokesperson for his product. I said, I don't even know what it is. I have to see it.
Yeah.
So I was looking at it, and I am seeing so many things that have to be tightened and put together, because a lot of times people have products, but they're not out there in the media and they could not be the spokesperson. They're the brains behind developing this.
Right.
But the media presentation of what you have is so vital. And you have to entrust the person who is the spokesperson for you to make sure that that gets out there to all the sectors. And one of the things that I asked this person to begin with was, who do you want your audience to be? And he didn't know this. And I said, well, you have to go, right, you have to go back to the drawing board. And somebody had come to me, a couple of years ago, and asked me to read this whole thing. He loves writing. And so I read what he had to, and he writes beautifully. And I said, who is your audience? He said, I don't know. And I said, well, that's the basic thing that you must know before you address anybody. Because who are you going to address? Air? You have to address this with an audience in mind.
You know, it's really interesting, because when I started doing my radio show, I never wanted to have a radio show, never thought about having a radio show. And so when I had somebody interview me for some other reason, and I found out that there was a potential that I could have a radio program, I'm like, yeah, that sounds really interesting to me. Okay. And so but they said you had to do it in 2 weeks, and the opening was there, and you had to figure out that in 2 weeks, not only did you have to figure out how to do all this, but you had to figure out what you want to talk about. What's the name of your show? Who are you selling to? And what do you want to talk about? And at the beginning, I guess I always focused in on, since my shows take the lead is what I came up with, because I wanted it to be the best at leading and about success. And I thought it would be really interesting to interview successful people and what made them successful. But whatever you buy into, you're kind of, that's it. You better decide what you really like.
You have to decide that in advance. And I have met so many people who have genius ideas that go nowhere because they haven't packaged these ideas in the way that needs to be, that they need to be packaged. And it's all about packaging and marketing. You see, people think, oh, you're so famous and you do this and you do this. Nobody knows all the stuff that goes into doing this when you're not on camera, when you're thinking and you're writing and you're designing and you're tweaking and
there's cost. There's a cost, and there's a lost opportunity cost of other things that you could be doing because you're spending so much time. I think that so many people will go, well, I want to do what you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And you go, well, do you have this? Do you have that? There's so much behind it that I think they want it to be really easy, and it's not easy. It's my mom always says she had me first. She wouldn't have had any more kids because it was so difficult. She had 2 before me. And I'm thinking of that, if you really knew what it would have taken to do this, would I have done it? Because it's so time consuming. But sometimes it's better if you don't know that, and you just, because it's so much, what I got out of it is just.
It's like all the research that we've done. I remember I was at NYU's library till so late at night until they kicked me out. I was studying and learning. But just like anything, you find this one piece of research, and it's so fascinating. It leads you to another, to another, to another. And before you know it, you're researching something entirely different from your original because it will support
something else. Yeah.
But people don't understand this. They are so frustrated because we live in this instantaneous culture that we think 1 and 2, and that's it. Yeah. But it isn't that way at all. Certainly anybody who's developed anything knows how difficult all that stuff, all that research is that we go through, and that is not on camera. It is just stuff that you have to learn, that you have to go through. And it isn't so easy.
It isn't easy. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking the things you spend a lot of money on things that maybe don't work. And I think some of that's what's
Yeah.
for somebody like if you're listening to this, because Gilda and I probably tried everything or bought everything or
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
taken every webinar, taken every class. Haven't you? I mean, seriously.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Uh,
still taking classes.
and not
I
all of it's useful. You know, a lot of people are trying to sell you things that sound really good. Like I found a lot of sponsorship people that, oh, here's who's going to pay for your radio show, and here's all you have to do. It is really tough to get sponsors for your shows until you get listenership. I mean, very difficult, don't you think?
Well, I think it's very difficult to get anything if you're starting out. I
Right.
think the first step out of the box is the most difficult. Then when you start to gather support for it, the rest kind of falls into place.
Mhm.
As spokesperson, and I know we've had some discussions about that, spokespeople always find me. They decide, you're the one that we want to represent our brand.
Yeah.
But I didn't start out looking to become a spokesperson.
Right.
I started out to be the best content deliverer of my area of expertise as possible. And I am still studying every day and reading everything I possibly can and watching every videotape that I can watch. I just purchased 4 audiobooks so I can be in the car and listen more and listen more and listen more to become smarter and better. And, you know, a lot of it is thank you, COVID, because that has given me the time that, for example, we would never be interchanging right now if not for COVID,
Right.
because I was running and you were running and we were
Yeah.
doing so much. And now it's so different now. It's just so different.
It is. It's different. But I think you're always learning because you have to stay one step ahead what the next thing is. Because as soon as you start to rest on your laurels of what worked in the past,
Everybody,
the
Diane.
social media thing, you know what I mean? There's something.
That's us, and we have
Yeah.
to acknowledge that that's our personality. How we found each other is pretty amazing. But I mean,
Yeah,
that's
we make
us.
each other right out of that. Yeah.
We're never looking for shortcuts. We're looking to ingest more and more and more knowledge so we can become better at what we do as deliverers of our content.
I think that there's a lot that that you have to just try a lot of things and see what works for you. Sometimes when somebody says something didn't work, it's because they didn't give it the right attention. So, but there's a lot of people who are trying to take advantage, though, out there of people who want to be the next
Well,
big thing.
people want quick and easy. And
Right.
what happens to quick and easy is that it usually doesn't work. There is no quick, there is no easy. You have to go through the learning and the growing pains. Ever hear growing pains for a reason? It may be a little painful as you're growing.
There's
And
a
you may not see any return for all your efforts for a long time to come.
it's really challenging, especially for speakers. There's a lot of people who will be speakers listening to this, and they're trying to get their business off the ground. And I can't tell you how many of the Hall of Fame speakers I've talked to who said their first 100 speeches they gave were for free. You think of how much you do for free in this business, and I meet so many people, and there's so much content. Everybody's giving everything away for free. You have to have the tenacity to hang in there because a lot of people can't afford to do things for free, and they'll give up, or but at the beginning you can't be expecting big paydays. But one thing that I thought was really good for getting into exposure for things that maybe you're going to do for free but it'll pay back later is serving on board of advisors groups, and if the connections you make if you're trying to get out there and get exposure to different things, sometimes you get up on stage with them because you're part of this group. You'll get on panels because you're part of this group. I'm doing a talk tomorrow. I'm part of a big networking group I'm in, and I get to be interviewed with one of the most amazing women in the world because I'm part of the group she's in, and we'll be doing this kind of interchange that you would never get if you didn't volunteer some of your time. So I think volunteering can be really critical.
Well, and I have heard from people who has told me outright, I don't do volunteer. I get paid for everything. Well, and now these people are standing around looking for work.